I'm Natalie Byrne. First, I want to say I've been so inspired by these past 2 days, and it's kind of really in sync with what we're all talking about up here, because you guys have come together as a community, and you're owning different projects, and you're putting everything into them, and you're nurturing them, investing, but together you're completely reinvigorating a city, and so I can take a lot away from that. And I live in LA, I'll come as much and help as much as I can. It's really, really inspiring what you guys are doing. That said, this is a big moment in my life, and it's ironic because this no longer is me. I have made some changes recently. I have spent the last decade in entertainment and the last 4 years in this role at A&E Networks. Essentially what I did was build big media marketing campaigns that bridged things that were going on air, so film, television, and branding initiatives with philanthropic outreach, so nonprofits, events, things like that. So it was sort of leveraging the brand and everything that we could do to make a difference. I'm no longer there, very new, obviously, since that hasn't been changed, but no, like seriously, like 2 weeks, and it's this whole new chapter in my life. So it's really ironic and maybe perfect to be speaking with a bunch of women about rebranding feminism when I'm rebranding myself. So here I am, and it's really exciting, and I don't really know what rebranding yourself means, but I'm putting a lot of thought into it. And I think that this is really reflective of what's going on for women right now. We've made huge progress, and we kind of like are chilling in this checkmate, if that's the right word, kind of area, and something has to change to move forward. So that said, I was a journalist, once a journalist, always a journalist, and I decided to interview a bunch of women from different ages to prepare to speak with you guys. So I talked to a close friend of mine who's actually a very famous journalist and author, and she's around 50, and I asked her, this is what I'm going to, is this offensive? Like, are we stepping over boundaries we shouldn't? Like, how do you feel about rebranding feminism, really? And she was like, I'm so excited to hear you guys are doing this and getting involved in this dialogue, because my generation, the reason I have the job I do and the opportunities I do and the lifestyle I can create is because of this movement that started. So then I go down a decade, I talk to some more women. They don't have quite the same answer. Feminism was too hardcore. They weren't gonna get a date. They're a little freaked out by it. So there's like this whole other decade after that was like, And then you get to us, and we're like so excited to be around women and supporting women and going to these events together, and it's just really cool, like this new invigorated movement that we're a part of. But I do think it's different. And something that was mentioned earlier about inclusiveness is sort of what's happening. And I think that, well, I'll talk about myself a little bit. So I am in this moment of uncertainty and vulnerability, and I'm totally freaking out. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know exactly what it's gonna look like. And I'm like, oh, these are all feminine values. Whoa, I've been in the corporate male world for so long that that's what I've been focused on. So, I'm Huckleberry Finning my way down the river, figuring out what I'm gonna do, and I'm thinking about this big election campaign that I did this year. I put 150% into it, and it was the only bipartisan campaign in 2012 that brought both sides together to get more women involved in politics. So I partnered with a few expert nonprofits, and we were doing trainings and talks and panels. We did a national poll, and it was all about getting women to run, get into office if they were inspired so. What we found is that a woman didn't have to be asked once. She had to be asked 3 times or told 3 times in her life that she would be a good candidate. And these are the smartest, most well-connected women you can imagine. They've been thinking about running their whole lives, and I'm like, these women need to be told 3 times to value who they are, then I need to make this campaign a little bit bigger. So we changed it into the advancement of women in the political process, which I think might be applicable to some of you guys here, because, let's say you're a mom who's given everything to her family, and you have always wanted to have a voice in the school board. you've always wanted to take a stand and run the PTA. Or maybe there is actually an issue in your community that you've always noticed. You know how to fix it, but you don't feel like you have the resources or the leadership or anyone would follow you, and who are you to say anything? So what I tried to do is build a campaign that was actually about empowering, finding your voice, knowing how to get out and reach, find out the tools, skills, the people, make those connections, which is what our group tries to do so well, connect you with who can help. So here I am, spending almost a year. We did a big thing at the DNC and the RNC, and we're talking to Republicans and Democrats about these issues. And I now am trying to find my value. And I'm like, wow, so I really did associate myself feeling good with the work I was doing. And I spent all this energy working on this huge brand to help women when now I have to figure out what that means for myself. And it's so authentic, and it's so scary, but it's so real. So getting back to what we're all here to talk about, because I'm like, who cares about my story, right? What I've started to realize is that I have to redefine success. And it doesn't really look like how it has for a lot of men and women in the past. Maybe I want to check on my motivations or what I want my life to look like. And I've started to harness this feeling of who's the woman that I've always wanted to become. And it kind of recalibrates everything, because you can take everything you're doing, every relationship, every conversation, every moment that you're having, and wonder, is this driving me towards becoming a better woman, a better person? So I want to talk about a woman that's really recently inspired me. And actually, she's a girl. She's 15 years old, and her name is Malala. And she lives in Pakistan. And some of you may know her because she was recently shot in the head by the Taliban for wanting to go to school. They literally got on her Jeep, the Jeep that she was taking to school, and shot her point blank in the head. No one really thought she was going to survive, but she did. Not only did she survive, but her story went across the world, thank you to social innovation and online communities. And people stood up for her. Pakistan stood up for her. Men she didn't know stood up for her. And all of a sudden, people have a face they can put to like the other people in the world and a story and know what this girl really is like. So a couple weeks ago, she finally spoke again. She's out of her coma, and she survived, and she gave like a mini informal press conference, that went all over YouTube. And she didn't say anything about being a victim or what happened or how upset her family was or how scary it was. She just looked the camera right in the eye and talked about how this is her second chance at life and how she is here to speak for all girls who have to go to school, and she's not going to stop for a minute, and she's ready to stand up. And everybody was just like, wow. I mean, this is a super precocious, strong girl. But she kind of represents this new emerging leader. We don't need anyone to tell us what is right and what works and what doesn't. It's all coming from inside. And using these online communities and voices, all of you should be using the microphone that is there to get your stories out, because that's how people can find out what's really going on and how we are leading from right here at home. So if we want to talk about it at home, I just saw Sheryl Sandberg speak a couple nights ago. She just launched her book, her first book, big book, called Lean In, and it's about female leadership. And she said, even in the executive boardroom, that women need to learn to not let the voice in their head get in their way. And right now there's a voice in my head that really wants to get in my way. So everyone knows, it's like you realize what is my value and what am I doing here and what are we talking about as women in general. So I'm really thankful to the XX for bringing us together to have this conversation. There's something though that there's this project I'm helping called the Athena Doctrine. And a bunch of us met him at TEDx, and since then I've been like, you know what, I'm available, I want to work on passion projects, how can I help you? And a team of researchers went all around the world to talk with people in different countries about what's working in leadership in their country. And they even went to natural disaster areas and said what worked and what didn't, what values are you seeing emerge and be successful? All of them were feminine. It was collaboration, teamwork, long-term goals, working together to really nurture a project and invest for the future. So what he has kind of brought out into the public in this big research document is the idea that it's masculine and feminine values together that are working in this new place, in this new way. So if we each can, in ourselves and in our lives, look at how, maybe it would be easy for me to say, oh, I was really successful in the corporate world because of how strategic I was and I'm good at negotiating and decision making. But really I have to look at, if it wasn't for my emotional intelligence, how would I have made that negotiation? If it wasn't for my willingness to be vulnerable and connect on relationships to find out how to problem solve, I wouldn't have been able to make the decisions I was able to. So in the end, I think that there is a way that we can maybe overlook the feminine values that we have inside that are making us into strong, successful business people, and the way that we're working together, and you guys are doing it better than anyone, building a city, and this is an example for everyone of how everyone can come together to make something grow. And for the women in the room, I think that when I really reflected on becoming the woman I want to be, I realized that it's like in little conscious decisions, the media tells you one story and someone else tells you another. But it doesn't matter if you get up and you get dressed and you want to look sexy or conservative or like a thug and a gangster and rock out like my friend in the front row here. So the point is that it's your story and you're living your truth and you know who it is and you're being authentic, and you guys are all making such a big difference in just these little tiny moments of your day, and I'm so excited to be here. So if anyone needs a little lesson on valuing your own voice, you can find me because I am in this constant struggle. So thank you.
Any questions? Can you make any recommendations on books about marketing specifically to women, understanding women?
Well,
and things like that?
I would definitely start with Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg that just came out. And then, do you know Seth Godin?
Yes.
So he's amazing and talks about flipping marketing on his head and looking at things using social innovation and community, and he is like right there, and he's a huge feminist. He's someone that whenever he speaks, he uses the pronoun she always, no matter what it is. So that's something too in your daily life you can notice, like, how you're referring to a leader. And so, yeah, he's another really good one.
Seth who and what book?
Godin, Godin. He has a bunch of books. And he's amazing. He's a big inspiration to me.
Any other questions? Since you have some free time, would you help I Am That Girl?
100%. That's what I want to do. I'm here. I'm here for you guys. I have lots of skills and want to use them passionately.
I'm going to make an assumption, and if it's wrong, then ignore my question. But because you had a job for 10 years, that's probably your identity has been built around that job.
Well, I didn't work there for 10 years. I worked in independent film for a while, like all over, but yes. I've worked there for 4 years.
So your job title sort of,
Yeah.
so your identity says this. So what are the opportunities and struggles with leaving the thing that you identified with and striking out in what appears to be your own path? What have you found in the last 2 weeks, I guess?
So he's asking me this process of leaving something that you self-identify with to figure out who you are outside of that. And that's basically my journey I'm on of value and like who you are outside of that. But that's a safe net. That's a cruise ship. That's something that I could stay in and get a paycheck and make a little impact. And I'm not to say that any organization, like I am open to working with really innovative, exciting companies, but it's about really measuring, for me at least, it was really about measuring my energy and my reach and being in line sort of with my vision and goals, and then helping to do that, because it's all energy. So if we could all go in the same direction, I think that would be awesome. But yeah, it's hard, but you start to think, you know what, I've always supported women and girls, and this has just been the way I've done it, and now I can do it in a myriad other ways, and more. It doesn't just have to be women and girls, because I think that the helping women and girls is bigger than that little sector. Any other questions?
So I find it actually difficult to ask questions about feminism because I feel like I'm going to hit the wrong chord.
There's no wrong chord.
So I haven't read it, but from the reviews I feel like Lean In is like way oversimplified, but it's like try harder. Don't give up. Don't let someone stop you.
It's a little, okay, I'm sorry.
And even if I'm wrong about that, let's just think that advice that some people hear can we, I don't think it covers enough ground to allow each of us to sort of have a full life that's authentic and allows us to, express our creative impact on our community. So the question I want to ask you is, more or less, are there high hurdles that we can bring lower? Are there, is there low fruit that we can pick? If there were three things, or if there were one thing that would help everyone, and in particular help level the opportunities for everyone, in particular women, what is that?
Well, I think it starts in your immediate. Oh, repeat the question. Okay. Okay. So the Cliff Notes is. Well, first off, I'd like to say thank you for saying that, because if there's one thing women have heard a lot, it's try harder, and that is really frustrating because we are trying our freaking hardest. So, right? So. Yeah, so that's the first thing. I just want to say, yes, you're right. And it's actually more about changing the way that we use words. So instead of saying, oh, she's bossy on the playground and now she's really aggressive as a woman, it's she has executive leadership skills. And wow, she really knows how to make things happen. And it's like things that you wouldn't label to a guy, right? Okay, so that's one thing. But the question was, what are some three easy hurdles that we can do to kind of make progress now?
If it's not easy, maybe the most obvious.
Most obvious. Most obvious would be kind of what you were just saying, thinking and this is more also corporate structure stuff, looking at how a woman, you take her advice and you treat her things in those settings, but this could go into anything. So, for example, in a relationship, sharing duties is a huge thing, and Cheryl talks about that a lot. The idea that a woman today, most women work full-time and have families full-time. So it's a matter of sharing that, I'll also take care of the kids, I'll also help you do the laundry, those kinds of things. But for this room, which is a little bit different, and obviously, I'm not married and I don't work in corporate America anymore, so I'm just gonna talk to myself. So, I think it has to do with breaking through stereotypes that you may have of yourself. When you look to a relationship, what do you want out of it, and what is it providing for you as a greater person? Looking to things and not jumping into a role of, oh, this is how I should act as a guy and this is how I should act as a girl, but looking at the traits in you that serve you well on both sides of the table, and being that way in work relationships and being that way in love relationships. Does that make sense at all? To answer your question a little, no? Not at all.
Sorry, the last comment, I'm trying to process it, and I don't think it made it through.
Okay.
Try again. Try a little harder.
And that just happened. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So your question is, how in your own life can you try and be more of a feminist? Is that the question?
I feel like I'm becoming on the wrong side of the coin.
No. I'm just trying to answer. I'm just confused.
The last comment you said, I just didn't follow as much as I would like.
I guess if you want to cry in public, but you're oh, I'm a little sissy, just cry in public. That would be a really easy example. You know what I mean? That's a good example. It's we don't have to live in these roles that we've always lived in. That kind of a thing. And if you're a girl and you want to totally rock out in the shortest skirt you own, rock out in the shortest skirt you own. Awesome. Amanda, did you have a question?
No, that was funny.
Okay.
No, I think that I think that you're making a really good point, and it's probably hard to contextualize when you're also in the middle of the biggest transition of your life.
Yeah.
And I think the conversation is around embracing the vulnerability that you have embraced, and that is the low, quote unquote, hanging fruit. And if we can all embrace that, and if we could all be brave enough to ask those questions and talk about what's really going on in our lives and not being afraid of that, that is what we can do. And I think you just did that perfectly. So.
Well, thank you. Okay, thank you.